Thank you, Chairman McMillan. Moving to the Fisheries Committee, Chairman David Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to call Frank Fiss.
Thank you, Commissioner. First presentation is a preview of Proclamation 1512, which is our commercial fishing proclamation. There were, if you look at the red line in your book, or when you did, you probably saw a lot of editorial changes. The things that I'm going to present right now are just specific to changes that will affect commercial fishermen. There were some typos and things that we had to clean up in there, and we also corrected the nomenclature of the species listed in there. First major change is to restore the Hatchie River proclamation to what it was before the last proclamation. What this means is that hoop nets, flake nets, trap nets, and pound nets with a mesh size of 1 inch or smaller or 3 inches or larger on the square may be fished there, only those sizes, and it limits it to October through April. Previously, it was year-round and it included that 1 to 3 inch mesh size. We also added a few species to the list of fish that commercial fishers can harvest with their license. This might be helpful for them to take these fish for bait for their trot lines and such. The first two are also eligible to be sold as live bait in Tennessee, and a licensed bait dealer might want to sell those and want to buy them from a commercial fisher if that was practical. And the last two are inland and brook silver sides. Those fish are only allowed to be sold dead because they are an invasive species, but there may be interest in selling them for bait or to harvest for their own traps. After some discussion with the Commercial Fishing Advisory, I think we've settled on a float definition that's going to work for everybody. It's 8 by 5 by 2. This will allow the guys that use those square floats as their preference they purchase to do that, and it also allows for the more traditional bullet style float, and those have to be in any color except black or gray. We're proposing to change the paddlefish season to noon on November 14 instead of midnight of the 15th, essentially that evening. The Kentucky Lake was changed to the noon prior this past year, and it worked out really well. You could imagine that a season starting with everyone vying for places on the river to put a net in the dark, this is a lot safer and easier on the commercial fishers and our staff that might be out monitoring it. We added some language to better define a gill net affecting hobbling. A gill net may be hobbled to no less than 2/3 the height of the net. And hobbling, again, is where you might have a 10-foot net and you might tie a 7-foot line to the top and bottom so that it has a little bow and waver to it. And that makes the net more efficient. And what we wanted to avoid here is that the net being tied on itself or being extremely hobbled. And what happens then is that the net becomes even more efficient to smaller fish and perhaps game fish. And the selectivity of the mesh size is negated by crunching the net down. So to keep the net open as much as possible is what we're going for here. And this is similar to what the rule we have for trammel nets. We also worked on the turtle trap definition, and these are a couple examples of turtle traps. The one on the left there is pretty neat. It's got a float on it to make sure that it stays out of the water a little bit, so that if you catch a sublegal turtle, it's not dead when you pull the trap. Of course, all turtle traps have to be set so that the turtles have a chance to breathe in the trap. Now, the full definition is pretty lengthy, but it basically defines the types of materials that can be used to make the supports and have the structure and the mesh sizes on any mesh that would be used. And that's been in the record now. And lastly, the reporting requirements for processed roe has changed, and what we're asking is that the raw weight of eggs be reported when they come into the fish processing, the wholesale fish dealer. What will happen is the fisher will bring in a fish and a tub of eggs associated with it, and then that tub of eggs is strained and weighed after the water runs off it. And that's a measurement that the industry wants anyway, so they can add their additives. So at that point, we want them to write that number down to the nearest, I think it's 10th or 100th of a pound. That's something that they're very specific about anyway. They've agreed that they can do that, and that will help us monitor how many eggs are coming out of a typical female of each size, so that if there's any variability, we'll be able to notice that. That's the end of the preview for commercial fish.
Do I hear a motion? The committee? I'm going to go to this discussion after that. Okay, questions then first then.
I'll make a motion to approve proclamation 1512.
Okay, second. Okay, any discussion? From the commission?
Frank, is the commercial fisherman advisory committee pretty much on board with?
They were instrumental in developing some of these regulations for the turtle net and the other size, and Ricky's here today. That I've not heard any. We've had no negative public comment about these regulations either.
Okay. Any discussion from the public? Questions? Okay. All in the committee for it, say aye.
Aye.
Any against, nay? Okay. Frank?
Okay. The second proclamation we have is an amendment to the existing sport fish proclamation. It's not the sport fish proclamation that we're going to discuss next month. This is kind of a hurry up or sort of an emergency request, and I'll explain it to you. It's specific only to Chilhowie Reservoir, which I've only had the pleasure to fish about twice, I think, and it's a really unique lake. It's about 1,800 acres, 10 miles long. It's a real cold water system on the Little Tennessee River, and it is stocked with rainbow trout and some lake trout occasionally. Interestingly, the Brookfield Smoky Mountain Hydropower company that manages the water in this system, they continue to provide money to stock these trout in the system as part of their FERC relicensing. And so this has been a pretty neat fishery down there, and they've informed us that due to some seepage concerns, kind of like I suppose what's going on Boone, they are interested or have begun drawing the water down about a foot a day to drop it 40 feet. And here's what it looked like in 2008 when they dropped it to 30 feet. So you put another 10 feet on that, and it's a pretty narrow river channel at that point. And what they are doing is closing, none of the ramps are functional, or they're all closed for sure, and they're allowing walk-in fishing access and to the lower lake. But they're asking us to close the upper lake. They kind of would rather close it all and just have everybody out of there, but we've been accommodating with them and back and forth, and gotten only the upper lake is requested to be closed to fishing. They're already posting it to trespass, but they don't want to have an attraction up there that people might say, oh, I'm up here fishing or whatever. There are some archaeological or historical resources that are exposed that they don't want people walking around on. That's a big part of this, I don't understand. So they have come in and put in buoys and markers to not go in the closed area. Here's an overview of the lake. What they're requesting is that we close the lake from Abrams Creek upstream, which is to Calderwood Reservoir, and that would be roughly that section of it. And that would include any of the major, well, all the tributaries, but only upstream so far as it would hit the national park boundary. We're not trying to close anything in the national park. So this one amendment to the existing sport fish proclamation would read that on Chilhowie Reservoir, Little Tennessee River and its tributaries outside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park from its confluence with Abrams Creek, upstream to Calderwood Dam, is closed to fishing. That's the end of that one.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Okay.
I got something that I want to talk about on a size limit that would refer to the sport fish regulations. Would I need to approve this and then amend to that?
Let's get this off the table. and
Okay.
Come back to your question.
All right, thank you. I'll make a motion, we approve this.
Okay, got a first, second. Discussion? Any questions from the public? Okay, all for it? Aye. All against it? Okay, ayes have it. Thank you, Frank.
No, just an amendment to the existing sport fish proclamation. Now, it's so far, yeah, it'll be next month for the full 2016.
Now, Chad?
Okay, I'd like to talk, while we're on sport fish, I'd like to make a motion. Right now on Tellico and Fort Loudon Lakes, we have a 18-inch size limit on smallmouth bass on Fort Loudon and Tellico. Our recommendation was the guys looked at, they wanted to continue that recommendation. The problem we have up there is we have the Holston River and the French Broad River both feeding into these reservoirs. Right now, we have a slot limit there with a 13 to a 17-inch slot limit. I would like for us to clear out all the confusion and go to a straight 18-inch size limit, a 5-fish limit on those two rivers that feed into Fort Loudon Lake. And the reason I like to do that is because you've got bridges up there that you can take boats past. A guy doesn't know, if a guy's fishing that body of water, it would be real simple for him to get, he puts in the lower lake, goes up there and fishes, comes back out of there. I'd like for the whole waterway to be a 5-fish, 18-inch size limit.
Who would like to address that? Frank? Okay.
Yes, when the slot limits were put in on the rivers in East Tennessee, that was part of our management goals for quality smallmouth fishing in rivers and streams, and there were several that were put on at that time. So we kind of have management goals for those riverine sections that were not entertained at the same time as we're looking at the management goals for the reservoir. So to put the two together, I don't really have any comment on that right now. We'd really have to go back to our management team and say, all right, what does this look like if we bring this together, so we can explain to the commission and anyone, the public, what it would mean, what we might be losing or gaining if we did that. And that would be something we'd like to do through our annual process, if we could. That'd be our preference.
Is that something we can do by because we'll be voting on sports fishermen in October. So you're saying next year you want to talk about it, or?
That would be our preference. If your preference is otherwise, we can try, but it would be very difficult to get the two different user groups. You've got river user groups, you've got reservoir user groups, to try to get all that sort of vetted out in a short month. It would be pretty difficult.
Chad?
We've seen this slide on the age of smallmouth more times than just about as many times as we've seen paddlefish. So I think if we raise the limit if we're raising the limit to 18 inches over, you're taking away any of those smaller fish. You're moving it up to 18 inches so it matches the lake. I feel like we're protecting the resource as far as the viability of the resource. I don't see any downside of that. I think it makes it a lot clearer picture for our anglers, a lot clearer picture for our officers that are checking anglers on the river.
I had this first I've heard of this, but we're taking away the slot, which inside that slot they're taking those fish.
No, the slot is actually protected, but the slot does allow harvest of fish in those rivers, which would be the people that would maybe be opposed to this sort of thing, that are used to harvesting those shorter smallmouth in that river. again, I can't gauge that.
But biologically, what Chad's saying, you're protecting more fish.
Well, yeah, but if you're also restricting use of a
So
resource.
typically, and when we have a proposal though, just for the technical part of it, we're in a sport fishing proclamation. If the commission brings something up, we need to give a public comment period of 30 days.
We traditionally have, yeah.
Okay, so we've got 30 days for this to be talked about. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other, but in what you're talking about, the commission can never change anything that you proposed to the next year. Not never, but that's hard to do.
Just a suggestion.
Unless you propose it. So, I'm just pointing out that we still got 30 days for comments. So I don't care one way or the other, seems like we're protecting more fish, and we still got 30 days before we try to make a decision, which leaves people 30-day comment.
Is it possible we can do that by the October meeting?
What we would do is add that as part of the press release from this meeting and ask for additional public comment on that specific topic. I don't know, I can't do the day count in my head, but that's not something that's in statute or anything like that. It's just something we'd like to do.
Okay,
We certainly do that if.
Okay. please.
Sure.
Good.
Thank you. Do I need to make a motion now to make an amendment to that, or are you gonna put it for a public comment and then we could?
I think you're gonna have to wait till the public comment.
Wait
period.
till the public comment period and go. Okay, thank you, sir.
Just to clarify, upstream to,
Cherokee Dam and Douglas Dam.
sure, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, I've been informed we need to go back and vote on our proclamations again. Mr. Cox, you be quiet this time because you're not on the fishing committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so, going back,
Don't ask me to make the motion next time.
going back to Proclamation 15-12, statewide proclamation on the commercial taking of fish and turtles. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all for it? All against it? Okay, ayes have it. I think we have, you made a motion. Did you make a motion on the second one too?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Second one, I think it was
Okay, okay. All right. I'd like to ask Tim Churchill to come to the podium, please.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. Tim, before you start, we've got 10 of these proclamations, and I think this is housekeeping. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is hear all 10 of them, then ask for just questions and a motion. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Tim.